I used to have several sites. Now I kind of like the grower's edge. It gives me that cash max. You can tell it which markets you're looking for, and it will tell you what your highest net back is based on the price they're paying at that time and the basis that they're paying. And that's pretty handy because I don't have to go to so many different sites.
Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. My name's Cody Bills. Today is July 13th. It's a Monday. We had the market moving higher here today. Out after the close was crop conditions. We'll talk about that, but before we get into it, let's turn over to the grain hedge trading platform and see where we closed off the day. Corn futures up 7 1/4 cents on the December contract. November soybeans up 6 3/4, and wheat in Chicago down 1/2 cent to 5.75 1/2 on the September Chicago wheat contract. Now, also out this week, we're going to want to pay attention to this because on Wednesday we have NOPA crush numbers and expectations there for 141.478 million bushels to be crushed for the month of June. If realized, that would be the second largest on record. So producers and traders out there, if you do trade soybeans, keep in mind that NOPA crush number report is going to be very important and provide probably some volatility here on Wednesday. When you look at export inspections out this morning, we did see over 1 million metric tons inspected for export for corn. Soybeans coming in with 134,000 metric tons inspected for export, and wheat at 249,000 metric tons inspected for export. Let's turn our attention now over to crop conditions, as this was one of the more important reports. I guess what I'm seeing here today, obviously, the USDA pushed this out. It was unchanged in the good to excellent category for corn conditions. Analysts were expecting a 1% decline week over week. To me, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of selling pressure here tomorrow. I think the market was looking for some declines. I think there was more emphasis on this report, considering the USDA last Friday did not revise their yield estimates lower here from what they had in June. With that being the case, and them keeping yield the same, I think analysts are probably expecting perhaps the yield estimate revision will come in August, and without seeing any sort of revision here in corn yield, I think that may put a little bit of seed of doubt there in some traders' mind, thinking maybe we won't get too much of a revision in yield after all. So to me, I think that this will probably have a negative impact here, more so than just any old crop conditions report. I think there's probably a little bit more attention being paid to this one, considering the July report yield was left unchanged. Now let's look at soybeans here. Kind of interesting story, down 1% good to excellent. That was in line with analyst expectations. We're now 62% good to excellent compared to 63% last week. So I guess that wasn't too much of a surprise here. We are seeing corn or soybean conditions to decline. Over the next couple of days, we should see more precipitation in Indiana and Ohio, areas that have gotten a significant amount of precipitation here and have had impacts there on their crop conditions. Now, winter wheat conditions, winter wheat is 65% harvested compared to 68% normal. So we're now back on pace for the most part in terms of winter wheat harvest. And spring wheat conditions did improve 1% in the good to excellent category. So that was very positive to see. Let's take a look at the weather here going forward. You'll notice that over the next couple of days in the eastern part of the grain belt, Monday and Tuesday, particularly wet for the eastern part of the grain belt, but there should be on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we should start to get a little bit of drying action. You'll notice there in the precipitation versus normal, the top right map of the United States, it shows Missouri kind of clearing up here. So Missouri finally getting a break from the heavy amounts of rain that it's received over the last few months. The western corn belt should be hotter than normal here this week. Highs around 90s. We have central and eastern part of the grain belt a little bit cooler, around the 80s. The one concern out there right now is that thunderstorms in the Mississippi and Ohio Valley states today and tomorrow could cause some situations for crop damage. Basically, with the shallow rooting from the excessive amount of moisture here, there is a heightened threat to that crop kind of getting toppled right over. So that is something we want to pay very close attention to, but I think any sort of issues there will most likely be isolated. But of course, once again, a damage, a possibility or a threat to production out of that region. When you look at the weather going forward into next week, you'll notice that it's going to be cooler throughout the Midwest for the most part, and precipitation for the most part will be limited to southwestern Iowa and parts of Nebraska there. So this outlook does not look overly threatening. It looks as though the eastern part of the grain belt is going to start to clear up here in the week to come. Other than that, guys, that wraps up today's show. I guess the big takeaway from this show is that when you look at the weather outlook going forward, it starts to look pretty positive. The areas that have been getting excessive amounts of moisture in the next week should start to get some drying, and that should help favor the crops here. When you look at the crop conditions, improving there, or slightly improving, unchanged for corn, I should say, but the excellent category improving. To me, these are not bullish factors. I think that we've gotten a lot of momentum to the upside, but I would be cautious up here. If I was a producer, I definitely would be looking around here to see, is this a time to price some grain? Because I personally think that this, with the prices the way they are, you want to be proactive about locking in some protection to the downside. Other than that, guys, that wraps up today's show. Give us a call. The number's 877-472-4607. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you here on Tuesday.